Good afternoon, everybody. Can everybody hear me? Yes? Beautiful. I'm going to try my best to articulate my voice and really make sure everyone can hear and understand what we're saying. So if at any point you can't hear me, please feel free to raise your hand and say like, yo, I can't hear you, or speak louder, or whatever. So I first wanted to start off by saying thank you to Daryl, Saskia, Elena, and the entire Holy Rad Studio team for their continued support. I've been here for 14 months, and it's been a joyous ride to be a part of the studio and a part of the family. It's really a community, and everyone here works on building each other up through various events and through various processes and various conversations that we've had. And so this masterclass I'm very honored to be able to do this and speak to you all today. This is something that I've probably been working on for almost a year now. When Daryl, Saskia, and I had a conversation about master classes and what I would potentially be teaching or talking about, I had a lot of things that I could do, right? I'm classically trained as a photographer, so I thought, well, maybe I'll do a photography-based master class. I study sociology, so I was like, maybe I'll just talk about the culture and people. But I didn't want to do any of that. I wanted to do something that I felt like could relate to the largest base of people possible. And so with this masterclass, it's coloring outside the lines. It's mindful practices within your creative process. And I feel like this is something that we can all work on together and build off of, because we're all kind of creative in some way. And even if we aren't working in a creative field, we have to apply certain creative resources to our work, or creative problem solving, or creative brainstorming, creative thinking. And so I thought it would be very beneficial to fill a room full of people who are and who aren't creatives, so that we could all kind of vibe off that energy. I feel like a lot of times with the projects that we're doing, you can really build something if you work with someone who's in a different field or has a different skill set than you. And to have a room filled of people like that, I highly encourage you to communicate with your peers, the person to your left and your right, get to know someone in the room, make a new friend, and really build off of that, because it's very important that where we are today is not where we are tomorrow. And so your next project could literally start with a communication with someone today, or a conversation through Instagram, or maybe something here will resonate with you and it really sparks you into doing something. And I hope it does. And so I have a little bit of a little spiel that I kind of wrote, just to kind of outline all of this. As Daryl said, Holy Rad Studio is a creative agency and production studio, and they do revolutionize the freelance culture. I've been able to work with artists here in the studio. I've been able to hire them for freelance projects that I've gotten. I've been able to collaborate with others, and I've just had really good conversations with people that speak to me on a level that really haven't happened since I've been in New York City. I want to thank ETC Agency. ETC Agency is a consultancy and creative agency that I founded and that I'm the art director of. But I do have members of my team within the audience, and so I want to thank you all for being present here today. Your support means a lot, because a lot of the things that happen behind the scenes you're very aware of and you see. And so you know how it is for me to be here at this moment today, and all the work that I've gone through this week just to make sure that I felt ready and very present to be here with you all today. ETC Agency is a multidisciplinary creative consultancy and agency built for the modern DNA. Through the lens of inclusivity and progressive thinking, we cultivate harmony between clients, content, and community. Our transdisciplinary team of creatives work in art, music, and design to produce concepts that make space and experiences for our community. And so outside of that, I do want to introduce my friend Elliot Carlyle here, who I'll be having this conversation with. I put Elliot's full bio here, and so I'm going to read it all because this deserves to be heard. All right? Elliot Carlyle is a New York City-based branding and creative consultant, empowerment speaker, executive and life coach, author, and philanthropist. Widely known as the architect of influence, his work spans the fashion, creative, business, and lifestyle sectors, serving as an industry expert to A-list brands and multimillionaire personalities, as well as a voice of empowerment, motivation, and inspiration. He is also recognized for his extensive knowledge and insight in the areas of entrepreneurship, leadership, personal growth, development, and influence. Elliot has seamlessly navigated multiple facets and roles throughout his professional career, including working in event production, public relations, creative direction, and media services. He received his formal education at the Art Institute of Charleston, a branch of the Art Institute of Atlanta, earning a BFA in fashion and retail management. Along working in an executive capacity with award-winning creator of New York Fashion Week and international consultant Fern Malice, he is currently the Director of Cultural Diversity and Inclusion for the New York City Jewelry Week. Jewelry Week. That's a tongue twister. Fueled by his personal mission and brand statement, building people for global influence, Elliot has created platforms to build and equip 21st century visionaries, dubbing his audience of creatives, entrepreneurs, ministry leaders, artists, philanthropists, and the like as fellow architects. People who are actively building dreams, visions, goals, purpose, and destiny. He is the author of the Influence Workbook, written to equip personal and corporate audiences with clarifying keys, liberating exercises, and empowering takeaways that will position you on a trajectory to get your next by moving you beyond the questions and unblocking your personal power. As he continues to evolve, Elliot is committed to being the voice, guiding people to achieving their greatest potential and influence. So with all due respect and pleasure, please give it up for Elliot Carlyle. And for those who don't know me, I'm Eric. I'm present and I'm here. I wrote a small little bio because that was woo. So Eric Payne is the founder and art director of ETC Agency, Interdisciplinary Consultative and Creative Agency, created for the modern DNA. His career has crossed the disciplines of fine art, luxury fashion, advertising, and production. Eric utilizes his gifts and creative energy to fabricate productions, narrative, events, and the unimaginable. That's me, y'all. I'm here. And so I want to first start off by saying this is a safe space. This is a safe space to communicate your ideas, how you feel, and what you're thinking. We all deserve space to talk about our feelings, and I wanted to create that today. And so before I really get into the gist of everything, if there's anyone in the audience who would feel powerful enough to stand up and just say their name and how they feel today, and what they hope to get out of today, not even just the masterclass. Maybe you hope to get a coffee after this. Let us know, because maybe I want one too. So do we have any volunteers?
Hi, I'm Michael. I hope you get fries after this.
Yes, fries. I'll take 2 more. Any more volunteers? Yes.
I am Samir, and I'm hoping to achieve clarity in the career process and how to keep fulfilling it with everyday experiences.
Beautiful. Let's get one more. Yes, sir.
I'm Chaz. I hope to be able to learn more about mindfulness and all of my creativity with these badass New York City kids. Also, just to be able to get my grocery shopping and my midterms finished today.
Amen. Come on.
Goals, yes.
Goals. Beautiful. And Elliot, how are you feeling today?
I'm better now.
Better now?
Yeah,
Oh,
I
that is
didn't want to get
beautiful.
up to come here.
Oh.
Yeah, I didn't.
I
I'm just gonna be
understand.
honest. Everybody
No.
looking surprised.
No, that's the
To be
truth.
honest, it's a safe place. I did not feel like getting up. I was tired. I had a late night, but I'm glad to be here.
You know what?
Doesn't change how I feel about you all, but I did not feel like it.
No, and that's real. I respect that. I think I woke up kind of feeling the same today. It wasn't that I necessarily didn't want to be here today, but after having a long week, it was like, woof.
Yeah.
All
We'll
right,
get to
I
that.
need that break.
We'll
And-
get some more.
Yeah, but you know what? Rest comes easy. And so let's start this off. The first thing that I wanted to talk about that's very important for me, and something that we have talked about in our our pre-talk was optimizing your energy. And so for me, I've realized, and through research and through Google EDU and Scholar, I've realized that there are many forms of energy and how we can consume energy. But the most important thing that I wanted to say is you need to balance your energy. Most of us have stressful days, and it usually stems from our workload. We work longer hours than we need to or should because this time is an finite resource. Energy is an infinite resource. Time is a finite resource. Energy is an infinite resource. As far advanced as technology is, scientists and engineers have not discovered a way to create more time. So no matter what we do, there's not more than 24 hours in a day, but there is more energy that we can produce. And so it's about understanding where your energy comes from and where it stems from, right? And so energy comes in the form of physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And I'm very keen on identifying where my energy is being used. I'm very keen on where I don't have the energy and how I can optimize what little energy I may have and how I can get more. And so the easiest thing to get more energy to do is sleep and get more rest. I think Elliot and I, we definitely have these kind of like long, engaging schedules where it's like, even if it's only a few things to do in the day, those things involve us communicating with people and talking with people. And that can use a lot of energy, okay? The mental power it takes to kind of finesse your way through a room of networking or pitch your next idea to a client, or if you're consulting with someone, that takes a lot of energy and that takes a lot out of us. And I think it's very important that when we are exerting all of this energy and when we are giving our energy away to everyone, it's kind of like, how do we bounce back? And how do we put that energy back into us? How do we fuel ourselves? How do we fuel our process? And so I think the most important part about that is that when you find yourself in these predicaments, you kind of have to live within your truth and you have to live within yourself. And this is something that Elliot has taught me through our conversations. It's like, you have to live within yourself and your truth, and you have to accept the things that are there and present and available to you. You can't necessarily kind of think about everything else that surrounds you, because when in doing so, you're using a lot of your mental energy in the first place. So before anything gets physical, you're in a process of exerting all of that energy. And so, Elliot, I wanted to talk to you about this comment that you made. You said falling in love with yourself will allow you to live in your truth.
Yes.
That was something that hit me so hard, and it resonated with me so much spiritually and mentally and physically within the space that we were in. So could you just let's just get into it. So we love in ourselves and we can discover our truths.
Well, I think that, well, first of all, let me just say, you said a lot, so I'm gonna try to figure out how to connect everything in my thoughts, because you were taking me a lot of places, but it's all in the same thing, so it's good. First, let me just say this room, I love y'all. This looks so beautiful. Diversity is a very big thing to me, and I love seeing audiences like this. So this is all awesome to me. Thank y'all for being here. First of all. But let me just start here. I think that there are always two energies. You know, we can say negative and positive, good and bad, all of that. But I believe that everything exists in either love or fear. Those are the two decisions. Those are the two energies. Those are the two places that you can be at any given time. And so the reason why I said to you that when we begin to love ourselves, when we live in our truth, or when we love ourselves and we can authentically live in our truth, is because most people are afraid of their own truth. And I mean, not necessarily that they have an issue with it, but due to society and effects of environment and, you know, just whatever, you know, sometimes whatever your truth is for the moment, it may not be what's necessarily politically correct or what is right, because what is right is relative and it shifts all the time. But the thing that remains constant is your truth. And I think most people, we live our lives trying to be right in any given circumstance, instead of saying, well, even if what is truthful to me goes against what is right, I'd rather be in truth, because in my truth is the only place that I have peace. And that takes practice, because as we live our life, we develop, and we don't realize as we go on and we become adults, you know, from a child. It starts from a child. We get affected by traumas, right? All of us have been traumatized, you know, whether we want to believe it or not. That doesn't mean you have mental issues, but all of us experience trauma. If you have ever ridden the subway in New York, you've experienced trauma.
Yeah.
I don't care. Like if you have
This morning.
yeah, you have experienced some trauma. So I'm saying, okay. So I'm saying that to say, you know, and we just live our lives, and we condition ourselves by what we experience, and we don't even realize it. And then we, you know, we do it for years, and then somewhere along the lines, you know, we get that age where we become awoke to another dimension of ourselves, because I believe we're always evolving and becoming a better version of who we are. And so, you know, we get to this space of enlightenment, and we get awake, and we realize, wait a minute, you know, this isn't even me. I don't really like this. I do like this. I don't have a problem with these type of people. This isn't, I don't want to do this. I no longer want to do that. And then we realize, wow, like, there's another part of me that hasn't been living. I haven't allowed to live. Why? Because we made no space for it. And that is really a space where we have not allowed love to work, because we've been in fear, and we condition ourselves based off of a fear, based off of what someone told us or what we heard, or, you know, even our family, you know. And I have a saying, people laugh when I say this, when people want to say, well, we don't do this and we don't do that. I've always challenged that when people have said that to me, even in my family, and I used to respond and say, well, my mama didn't name me We the People. You know, so there's no we. Like, I understand you don't do that, but I don't have a problem with that. You know, I was in Memphis. My dad's family is all from Memphis, and all of them have never left Memphis, Tennessee. And he's one of 16 children, and all of them grew up there. They were raised there. They're beautiful, wonderful people, but they have never been anywhere else. So when it comes to their perspective on things, when I used to go visit as a child, they would try to, you know, systemize me based on the perspective and experience that they had. And so I will never forget, as you can tell, I like jewelry. And one day we were going to the mall, and one of my cousins said, well, before we go, you need to take all that jewelry off. And I was like, well, why? And he said, well, we don't go to the mall and wear all of that stuff. This is Memphis. And I said, I have been all over this country. I have been places that you still look at on TV. You don't even know really exist. And I don't ever take off my jewelry to go anywhere or do. And he was like, well, if you want to ride with us, then you're going to have to take it off. I said, well, you go and I'll get to the mall on my own, because I'm not getting ready to adjust who I am. But we're faced with those decisions. We're faced with those moments all the time on our jobs, in our friendships. You know, we do it because we want to be accepted. We want to be a part. But even when it comes to your truth, even if you have to stand alone, it's better to stand alone, because truth can stand by itself, but wrong needs all kind of company. And so when you get to that type of place and you're able to stand there as that type of person, it only strengthens you, and you become more in love with who you are, and you become more of a person who lives at peace. Because most people, if we were honest with ourselves, when we've done all that, we look back at those places and those spaces in our lives, we really weren't at peace. We were functioning, but we weren't at peace. And so for me, and so I can talk about life. And so for me, I just learned I want to be intentional at living a life of peace. And I'm gonna say this one thing, and I'm gonna give it back to you. But you're talking about energy. So they did a study on energy calibrations. And like he said, there's different levels of energy. So they did a study on energy calibrations, and they went to a mega church service. A mega church service, about, you know, average of, well, mega church about 3,000 people and up. A mega church service, and they measured the energy that was in a mega church service. And it started off at about, I think it was a 3 to a 5 energy calibration. They also did the same study at an AA meeting. And in an AA meeting, the energy calibrated starting off about an 8 to a 10. An 8 to a 10. You have a mega church service. Hallelujah. And then we have an AA meeting. What is the difference? Can anybody tell me what the difference is in the two? Why did the AA meeting calibrate higher than the church service? Honesty and truth. Why? Because when you start out at an AA meeting, the first thing you have to stand up and say is, hi, my name is Elliot Carlyle, and I'm an alcoholic. You have to start out by acknowledging the truth. And most people, I'm about to get in trouble, most people who go to church, I'll just say that. and that's And I'm only saying that to say because it is Sunday and you're talking, and I am an ordained minister as
Yes,
well.
he is.
I actually am. So it's funny that you said that. So I have no problem, but I do have a problem. And most people are where they are right now, but they're not having conversations like this. I'll just put it that way. Go ahead.
I think that based off of what you said, what is really important is the word we're looking for is accountability, and holding ourselves and those around us accountable for their actions and their emotions and the emotional states that they're in. And I think that that's key to owning up to who you are, owning up to who you want to be, and owning up to how you feel. You have to hold yourself very accountable for those.
And being okay with it, which is why love is okay, because most people, the average person, how many of y'all look at yourselves in the mirror? Because I found as a life coach, people have a problem looking at themselves in the mirror because they don't like what they see. And the thing is, until you can fall in love with what you see, and here's the thing I'll say, when nothing outside of you can stimulate you, then you're already turned on. Most of ourselves live our lives needing the approval and the validation of others to say who we are and to acknowledge that we are okay. As long as you live your life with an internal question, you'll always need somebody else for the answer. But when you can already answer the question that you have for yourself, when you start out having an answer, then you live from the inside out. And my job is, as a coach, is to help people live from the inside out, not from the outside in, because you will find yourself shifting and changing all your life, and you'll be basically schizophrenic, trying to figure out who you are. And you don't want to become 50 or 60 realizing, wow, I could have been this and I could have been that, because you can't maximize. I'm talking to creative. You can't even maximize in your area of creativity unless you are free. Why? Because freedom is the highest expression of creativity that there is. When you are in a place where you can freely think and free. Last time I walked through the door and I was so energized when I saw that, you know, this is a branding space in the front. Like I saw the boards, and I mean that stuff excites me. And then people being amongst you all, like I feel your energy. This is an exchange. Like I'm feeling this. I'm glad I came. Yeah. But I do know that I feel like, to be honest with you, most times I have to go and do things like this. It always comes at a time when I'm so taxed physically. Physically, I have been going, and then it's like I need to get on stage and talk. But this is my power. I can talk all day long, and especially when it comes to a room of creatives. I was just in Boston doing a national keynote, and I mean, spent all day in the airport because my flight was delayed. I got there at 11 o'clock. I was supposed to land at 6:30. I got there at 11 o'clock, or 7:30. I got there at 11 o'clock p.m. and walked in, and there was a group of ladies that were there from Bermuda. And when I tell you, me and those ladies stood and talked for 45 minutes. I didn't even get to the hotel to check in at the hotel. I was just standing in the lobby talking with those ladies, and I was like, I can do this. I'm ready. I mean, I got on stage the next day, and I was like, I hope y'all ready, because I'm here. But it was really good. But I was so drained, and I think, you know, we're used to just going, because as creators, we live with this demand on us. We have to produce. We have to show up. We have to talk. We have to sing. We have to shoot. I mean, we just have to, because somebody's depending on us. Also, we got to pay our bills. So, you know, there is that commitment, you know, to ourselves. But at the end of the day, you have to also remember you have to show up for you. And it is okay to acknowledge the truth that I'm tired. It's okay. Just say it. Just because sometimes you'll understand that when you can acknowledge that, you'll shift your own energy. I mean, some days I go into the office and just be like, I have to say, I'm not here for it today. I'm not in the mood. Like, I'm tired. I don't want to be bothered, you know? But at the end of the day, I know I'm going to have to be bothered, because I have to talk to people, and I love talking to people. I'm a people person, all of that. But if I don't, for myself, just acknowledge the space that I'm in, then I can never grow from that space, and I can never move from that space, because I'm held in the deception that I've told myself, or the narrative I've allowed myself to live, which is not true. Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm gonna snap to that myself. So in this conversation, another moment that we had to talk about within our talk was self-discovery and self-love. And I think you kind of touched on the surface of that self-love and what it means to love yourself. And it is all about having that honesty and that openness with yourself and your emotions, how you're feeling. But I know that even within one of the workshops that you do with your clients, you talked about is like the looking in the mirror. And you ask yourself and you ask the person, so what do you see within this mirror? what is it that most people do when they have this moment of looking in the mirror?
Well, most of them laugh. They shy away. They think it's silly. They're like, oh, I don't see the purpose in doing this. And I'm like, this is the one time that this is a moment for you, and you can't take you seriously. But if we were doing things for everybody else, we can do that. But this is a moment that's something so simple for you, just this mirror moment, and most people want to shy away from it because they don't like what they see, or they feel very apologetic just to acknowledge, I'm beautiful. Just that. You know, I dress very well. I mean, just think of that. Like, most people will not, you can't, there's a lot of people walking around, you can't even give them a compliment. You know, oh, you think so? Well, oh, you look really nice. You think so? Well, I hope you think so. You walk out the house like that. What do you mean, do I think so? You should know that you should say thank you. You know, you walked out, you put this together and you walked out the house. You didn't feel confident in that? Well, not really. I just felt, but you came out the house. So you came out here experimenting on us? You know what I'm saying? But I'm just saying, like, how, I mean, and we do it all the time. One of the reasons, what came up in our conversation about coloring outside of the lines, I said, when I wrote the book, I hope I'm not jumping ahead of you, but when I wrote the book.
No, we're going to next, so go ahead.
The influence workbook, people would ask me questions like, well, who did you write this book for? And I would say it's for everyone. I used to say for a long time it's for everyone. But I also knew that there were not a lot of people who would commit to doing this book, because my book is actually a workbook. It's not a book that you just read. It requires something of you. It is not reading about my life, or it's not about me. It's really about you. So I said that for a long time, for months. I was, you know, it's for everyone, it's for anyone. And I realized, but it's not for everyone and anyone. So then I started thinking, well, who exactly is this for? And it came to me, it is for people who are not afraid or who are bold enough to color outside of the lines. And I remember the first time I said that, and someone was like, what does that mean? I'll tell you, because some of y'all are looking like that right now. What does that mean? When you were a little boy or a little girl, remember somebody gave you a coloring sheet, or you got your first coloring book, and they gave you a box of crayons or pens or markers or whatever was around, and they told you the color, and they sent you away in that little corner, and you got whatever color spoke to you or whatever color you liked, and you couldn't even pronounce the name, didn't even know what color it was, but you knew it could do something. So you grabbed it and you scribbled all over that piece of paper, just all over it. And then you finished and you showed it to your teacher or your grandmother, your mom or your dad, whoever, and they put it up somewhere and said, oh my gosh, Johnny or Susie, that's so beautiful. And you lived your life like that for a long time, until one day somebody told you you're not supposed to color outside of the lines. And that elephants weren't pink, and that grass wasn't blue, and that, eggs weren't green, and whatever else. And all of a sudden, your whole approach to your creativity shifted based off of that piece of information. But what if no one ever told you you weren't supposed to color outside of the lines? What if you were able to come to that on your own? Just think about that. And most of us have lived our lives staying in the lines based on some information that someone gave us about who we are and how we express and how we engage. And boys don't do this, and girls don't do that, and black people don't do this, and white people don't do that, and we don't eat there, and we don't go there, and we don't read this, and we believe this. And then you get an age where you just rebel, and you're like, wait a minute, I don't have a problem with this. I don't have a problem with that. I do like this. I like to eat that. Why can't I have bacon? Why can't I, you know what I'm saying? Why can't I have a different group of friends? Why can't I hang out with transgender people? Why can't I mean, whatever. I mean, I will never forget when I was a little boy, the first time I brought a drag queen to church with me. I was in high school.
Okay, that's what happened.
I was in high school, and I had a friend who was an actual drag queen, older than me. Of course, they weren't in high school. I was, and I invited them to come to church with me, and it was so funny because after church, people was like, like you weren't afraid to do. Why would I afraid? This is the church. Everyone's supposed to be. This is the church.
Everybody is welcome.
Well, that's what they tell us. That's what they tell us until you bring somebody who's unwelcome in a welcome place. And I realized, and I'm telling you, at that point, I realized, wow, like you all are afraid to live. Like you all are afraid. What is wrong with these people? What are these people gonna do? Like I'm serious. Like what is it? And we get so afraid of what's different. That is my biggest thing with the world today. We have gotten to a place where we have forgotten the beauty of embracing difference. And just on average, most people fear what's different. You know why? Because it positions you in a place where you now have to learn. You are no longer the expert. And most people, the issue with their supremacy or the status and the elitism that we experience in society on whatever level, is because they don't want to be positioned in a place where they now have to learn because they want to be the expert. And I don't care where you go in life, I don't care how high you get in life, you will always be a student. Never forget that. Remain a student of life. You will always be in a position to learn. You are ever going to learn more about yourself. Every day you are going to learn something more about yourself. Just position yourself that way and life becomes so much more beautiful, and you learn that life is an experience and a journey. You'll never master this. It's the hardest thing to do is master life because it changes every day. I mean, every day. People come, people go. Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, just life is just, don't even get me started. But it's the hardest thing to do. But when you embrace it as a journey, then you understand the beauty that lies within, and you are ever growing in your energy and expanding the space of your influence, because everything is energy, even sex. Go ahead.
On that note, I think that one point that I wanted to kind of piggyback off was that this idea that you kind of have to put your experiences and your work out into the universe in order for it to be seen. By a show of hands, how many of us are on Instagram? Everybody in the room. By show of hands, how many of us use Instagram as a platform to exemplify our work? All right. How many of us have posted something on Instagram and within the first 5 to 10 minutes we archived it or we deleted it? How many of us just don't post things because we feel like it won't be liked enough or it won't be accepted through social media? How many of us just don't even post on Instagram because we feel like we ain't got the work, the gear, the technology, or the resources to be where everybody else is, because we see the people with the verified checks getting all the likes, getting all the sponsorship deals, and getting all the collaborations? Okay, I'm glad I'm not alone on that. One thing that I've realized and one thing that I've noticed within my own work and the things that I've been doing through Instagram recently and through social media is that I haven't cared about what I've been posting. I haven't cared about what I've been sharing. Because a lot of times we are the ones to psych ourselves out and we are the ones to close our own doors. Most recently, just out of nowhere, I started posting things that I would type up in my notes, right? I would be in a public place and I would see this whole kind of scene play out between the everyday people, and I would type it up. And I would always make some little philosophical comment at the end about like what it meant for this situation to happen, right? So one of those situations for me was that I was sitting in Union Square Park and there was this guy, this burly bear of a guy, he was playing a saxophone. And I said, the music that he's playing is very funky, but so is the guy sitting right next to me, right? And then I said, but I would tell the guy who's playing the saxophone that he's funky, but I wouldn't tell the person next to me that he's funky. So what does that say about me, right? And it was just this little thing that I typed up, but I posted it. And I didn't post it caring if it was gonna get 1 million likes or if it was gonna get a lot of comments. But I posted a series of these little notes, and there was one person who messaged me in my inbox and said, thank you for sharing this. Like, this really resonated with me, and it really spoke to the things that I want to do. I feel like every day there are these real life instances and experiences that I have that deserve to be documented and that deserve to be shared, but I don't feel like I have a platform or a place for them. And I said, you do, it's right here. I follow you, post it, I'm gonna like it, I'm gonna comment it, we could talk about it. And so now I got into a point where I've started posting things that are not what I normally post. So outside of photography, outside of design, outside of production, I post little illustrations that I did. Recently went on vacation, I posted illustrations that I drew on my way. And then I remember posting some illustrations and I even got a job out of it. Someone was really like, yo, I like what you're doing. And I see it. The post only had 14 likes, but the person liked my work and instantly booked me for a job to do my illustration work. I felt like my illustrations were shit. I thought they were terrible. But I was like, I'm gonna just share it, because you know what I'm saying? I see people out there, they doing different things with their drawing and they sketching. I'm gonna just post mine and see what's up. And that feeling of just letting it into the world and releasing it into the world and letting the world do the work, it's been a beautiful thing for me, because I'm no longer attached to the idea that if everybody doesn't like this, it doesn't deserve to be seen. It doesn't deserve to be heard. It doesn't deserve to be interacted with. But the most important thing as creatives and as people is that we have to understand that we should not be creating and building for the masses. We should be creating and building for that one person. Because with that one person, you've done your job. If you can create a piece and it communicates to one person, you've done your job. Because you know what that means? There are likely more people like that person who are interested in that work. They just haven't seen it yet. That's how you have to think about it. And I know you wanted to chime in on that. Hit
Well,
me
yeah,
with
well,
it.
that's very good. I mean, I was just talking about this actually as part of my presentation when I was in Boston. I get it. I understand that. One of the things that I tell people, you have to remember and really sit with yourself and ask yourself, because a lot of people are just on social media just because it's the thing to do. And I mean, there's a fun element and you get to be nosy and see what other people are doing. But at the end of the day, when it comes to your profile, you really do need to understand what is the purpose of your profile. Why are you sharing? What are you sharing? And then who's it for? And you may not know. I tell people, even just because you don't know, that's part of the learning experience, right? You'll find out. I will never forget when Twitter started. I was just like, I don't know what to do with this. Like, I was really, really confused on what to do with Twitter.
I still don't know what to do with it.
and I hear that a lot, and people are surprised because I love Twitter. I have so much fun on Twitter, and I share a lot. I'm able to share things that just come to my mind, quick thoughts. Because on Instagram, you have to create a little picture or find a picture to post to put this, to put a caption with it that people probably aren't going to read because they're more visual. Twitter is more about visual, but I do understand if I post something on Twitter, people go to Twitter to actually read. So, my Twitter feed, I have a different conversation on Twitter than I do on Instagram. People interact with me different on Twitter. I have a Twitter friend here today.
Hey, Twitter friend.
Yeah, we always interact. Thank you for being here. But Twitter. So Twitter's a different conversation. But the thing that I love, and I shared this about Twitter, was I found that as crazy as I am, the craziest I think I am, I can share the wildest thought and just tweet it, and somebody out there thinks like me. Like, I am not alone. Like, I'm serious. I will tweet something and somebody will be like, I was just talking about that, and tag somebody and be like, see? And I'm like, oh, it's the whole, where are you at? I'm in Vermont. We will probably never meet, but it's nice to know you. Especially during red carpet season. I mean, I primarily am in fashion, so during red carpet season, you can tweet things about people's looks and stuff, and people, oh, I was gonna post that too, so it's fun. But going to what you said, all of us in here, because you are creative, you have to remember that what you have on the inside of you is a gift. And when you operate in that, it is for somebody else. It does something for somebody else. You may not know. That's the beauty of social media, because you can find those people. Everybody uses that thing, find your tribe. You can find your tribe, by executing that. But one of my favorite quotes by Marianne Williamson, she tried to run for president, is our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate, but that we are powerful beyond measure. And there's another line that says, as we liberate ourselves, we give other people permission to be who they are. I love that, because really that is truly what we do. My greatest social media story is last year when I was getting ready for my book launch. It was in October of last year, but around maybe February, I was contacted by this girl, and I can tell her name. She says I can tell her story, but her name is Kate Ross. And I don't remember what exactly I posted, but it was actually during Fashion Week. I won't forget that. And Fashion Week, I have a lot of interesting thoughts during Fashion Week, just based off of how people deal. And I said something, and I can't remember what I said, but she saw it, and I didn't know her. She DM'd me this long message. It was like 8 messages for me to read everything. But she basically was reaching out to me to ask me to be her mentor. And she said, I went through your profile and I was looking at the things you say and the things you do. And she was like, I need somebody positive like this in my life. Would you please, mentor me or talk with me? And so I wrote her back and I said, absolutely. I said, come by the office. I gave her a date and time. She was a no-call, no-show. And so I reached back out to her and I said, hey, I know things happen, but, I was looking forward to meeting with you today. And she said, oh, this came up, that came up, can we please reschedule? So we rescheduled for another week. no call, no show. And so I wrote back and I said, hey, just, not like I don't have anything to do, but I'm like, is everything okay? Just checking. She was like, oh, I had this, and then that came up. And I said, well, let's try a weekend. Obviously the week is busy. I said, I don't mind. I'll come here on a Saturday. I'll meet you on Saturday. She said, okay. Gave her a date and time. No call, no show. So at this point, I was just like, I'm not really sure what's going on with this girl. This is annoying. But I felt, because of her message was so genuine. I said, there's something here. So I wrote her back. I said, look, I tell you what, let's not plan anything. I said, this is my address. If you're ever in the area, just text me. Here's my number. Just say, hey, can I come by? I said, even if I have 5 minutes, I don't care what I'm doing, I will stop and I will come talk to you. I never heard from her again. This may have been March, maybe April. This had gone on for a long time. And so I never heard from her again. So in October, I'm at my book launch party and I'm signing books, and this girl comes through the line and she's standing there. So, I look up and she's crying, and I said, hi. I said, first it's like, okay, what's going on? So I was just like, hi, what's your name? And she can barely get it together. So she has a little friend with her. So I was like, okay, so she can't speak. Well, let me sign your book. So I'm signing it right there. So I was like, well, how did you, I said, do we know each other? And she said, no. I said, well, thank you for being here. I said, this means a lot. She said, no. She said, thank you. And I was like, okay. I said, well, who did you come with? And she said, I didn't come with anybody. I came up by myself. And I said, okay, well, how did you get here? Did you see the flyer on Instagram or something? She said, yes, my name is Kate. And I knew exactly who she was when she said that. And I said, girl, I have been looking for you. What happened? And when I said that, she said, you remember me? I said, I did. And she lost it. I mean, we just hugged and she cried and cried and cried. And I was like, well, what is going on? Like, are you okay? And she said, you don't know what you did for me tonight. She said, you just don't know what you did for me. She said, I can't talk about it tonight. She said, but I'll send you an email. And I said, okay. The next morning, I woke up to an email that I still have saved, and I have it printed, and it gives me chills every time I think about it. But she was basically, she deals with chronic depression, and she was having a whole month of suicidal issues and suicidal thoughts, and she had decided to enroll in this program in Germany called Dying with Dignity, and it's based, I didn't even know this existed, but you go over there and basically check into like this program where you get away from friends and family and everybody, and you disappear, and then you just die. Like, I mean, I don't know the ins and outs. I didn't look into the program. I don't know anything about it, but from what she said to me, she was going to check out of life. And because of her coming to that talk and hearing me talk about my book and just hearing me talk, she said, I have decided not to do that. And my book launch party was a Thursday. She was gonna fly out on that Saturday. She canceled her plane ticket, and she's here and she's doing all kind of stuff. She's an activist, and she's doing things with mental health and helping people. I mean, it's beautiful. And she writes me all the time and says, if you had never posted that post, I would have never connected with you, and I never would have been at your book launch. She said that book launch party saved my life. And, it's those kinds of things that you can't, I could elaborately make some video and post this and share this on Instagram, but those are the things that happen in my life. I mean, that's one of many. I get messages and I get things like that all the time, but I understand that is my gift, that is my purpose. It literally is why I'm here, and I know that as most of us as creatives, we have a narrative, we have a story that we never tell. We really do. We deal with pressures, we deal with upsets, we deal with traumas, we deal with offenses, we deal with hurts that we will never express publicly, and sometimes never express privately. And sometimes I'm even dealing with things, but I'm able to use even just that moment of truth for myself to acknowledge, and I will fuel that into what I post. I will fuel that into my channels, because I know that there's a human element that it reaches. Even if it's just truthful things. The other day I went to an event and I did not have a good experience. I did not have a good experience at all. I wasn't gonna bash the people, but in the moment it was a learning moment for me. So I posted something in my story and I said, sometimes you have to go places to see how much you've grown. Oh. Because that's all in all, we were walking and Channing was with me. We were walking away, and I said that because I realized I could really be angry about how this went. I could be frustrated, but I have to shift this energy and say, you know what, I've just learned I'm really above this.
It's above
It's above me now.
No. I don't like that. I have a problem with that. I don't know where did this above me now thing. There's nothing above me. I'm above it.
Oh.
I don't believe in putting things over me. I believe in being above things. I don't know where that came from, but we got to stop running with stuff just because it sounds cute and think about it, because that's not cute to me. It's about, I mean, you looking at something like, well, it's above me. Now it ain't above me. I'm above it. Yeah, sorry. That's
No. That's
Yeah, I don't like
that's
that.
social media for you, but
Oh, he said in the context it makes sense, but I just
Right.
don't like the statement. The universe doesn't understand context. So when you
Oh.
release statements, the universe does not care about context or emotions or feeling. It listens to what you say. And so you have to just be careful about your words. So I understand that, but even still, it's not cute to me.
no, it is. The whole situation, the video, and the context of it just wasn't cute. We
Yeah.
go back retroactively to that.
Oh, okay.
But it is something that is like very frequently used. And
Yeah, and we do that.
Yeah.
And we wonder why we always up under
we
stuff.
grab it and then we run with it. Hello?
I'm just saying.
But and it's oh, they mad. They big mad.
They got something above them.
Right? I think that, in all of this conversation and all that we were talking about, one thing that we both were like really elaborating on in our conversation was the fact that when you go through life in these instances and you put yourself in a situation to where you feel like this is what it is and this is how it's going to be, you don't really see any other option, and you don't really see the change or how things can change.
That's good.
And then we kind of got on this saying of like, you have to reprogram yourself. You have to recalibrate yourself into thinking outside of that box or outside of those lines that sometimes, we put up. We put those barriers up, and now we have to start reprogramming ourselves and rethinking what it is that these lines are. Do these lines really exist? No, they don't. And I'm living in that. Like, delete the lines. Control, Alt, delete them. Escape. Leave the lines alone. You don't have to live inside of a box. As a creative, you can have gone to school and studied one thing for 4 years and still learn how to do another creative process. For those of you who saw me when I was coming in here this morning, I was over here sticking and poking with my needle. I just learned how to do that 2 days ago on YouTube, okay? I went on YouTube and I was like, how to embroider beginner tutorials. I went on WikiHow and I got like a little list of things that I needed to get from Michael's thrift store. And I just took that journey. And I said, I don't know what this journey is gonna look like. I don't know half the hell of what I'm doing, but I'm gonna do it. And I'm gonna commit myself to doing this. And I'm gonna see what this practice does for me. And within the 2 days that I've done this practice and just working with it, failing, but still working through the failure, I'm learning so much more about the process because I'm now being physical with it. A lot of the times when we create work or when we do things, we expect that with everything that we're doing, there has to be an end result. There has to be a final product. There has to be something to show the client or show the person. It's not always like that. You can create work just to get through the process. You can create work to learn the process, experiment with the process, learn what works within the process, learn what's failing in the process. Or if we feel like it was a quote unquote failure, what did we learn out of that failure that we can roll with into the next punch? What did we learn within that process? That's very important to me. So a lot of the work that I do, sometimes to others it feels unfinished, but to me it was just a process. It was just the beginning. Because now, the next time I'm working with the client, now the next time I'm working with a friend or I'm collaborating with someone, I've worked through the challenges of that process. So now I'm able to give insight into how we can move more strategically, optimize our time, optimize our energy, being efficient, and really learning what it is to work as a team. I'm equipping myself with the skills that I know will benefit me and may potentially benefit the person that I'm going to be working with in the future. Or the company that I'm going to build in the future. I might be spanning out. You never know. I might be doing some cutting sews now. Like, I'm into it. And I think that as creatives, it's very important to kind of remind ourselves that process exists. And process is not meant to be complete. It's not meant to be perfect, right? Process can be messy. Process can be unforgiving. process can be a failure. And I'm going to use the word failure because we're scared of the word failure. I'm scared of the word failure. You know, when we do those little CAPCA questions on everything important, don't be trying to steal my stuff, but they say, what is your biggest fear? And literally mine is failure every time. Because I'm so scared to fail that I just feel like if I ever get that low, it's it. I'm throwing in the towel. I'm going to work at McDonald's and flip burgers because I ain't failing, all right? But now I realized years later that that whole mindset that I was in about failure and what it felt like to me and what it looked like to me, that had to be demolished. I had to literally break that down because it wasn't necessarily that I was losing anything when I failed. It was always a lesson to learn. And something that I tell my...
fail?
No, I didn't. And something that I did a teaching residency in Canada this summer, and I was working with photography students and all these gifted young kids, and they would really beat themselves up over not being able to grasp the concept the first time around. They felt like they had failed. And then my little sayings, you know, if you know me, I love a little saying, I love a little quote. So I'm being all cute with it, but it was something that I practice every day. Like, a lesson learned is a lesson earned. A lesson learned is a lesson earned. A lesson learned is a lesson earned. And it's so important that you kind of put that into your work, into the things you're doing, and into your life. Because when we're failing, or when we're losing, or when we don't feel like we're there, it's okay. Because you're still learning. And just like you said, you're always going to be a student in this world. And you have to be open to learning and accepting those experiences as they come. You always have to be open. You have to. You have to commit yourself to building out your skill set. Or like I like to say, build out your Rolodex, okay? So if you go through my mental Rolodex, I got all the skills that I can do alphabetically categorized, okay? I'm a whole little machine in here. But now I'm learning on how to put that machine into the real world and how to put that into real world results, where it is process-based work, where it is collaborative projects, where it is outreach, where it is curating galleries and exhibitions, where it is hosting conversations, more to come, where it is just about building those relationships and building that community. To me, that was me working through that process.
Yeah, I think that one of the things to remember in that's really good is that so we're always students, but then we do become teachers. And in what you are doing as creatives, you know, you're actually in a teaching role. So when I was in school, and I'll say this because what's not in my bio that I hate listening to is that I was a college dropout. After I graduated high school, I went to school on a full music scholarship. So music was my background. I had done music all my life, and so when I graduated high school, it was what exactly made. I mean, there was just no other choice to do anything else. You're going to do music, and of course, I auditioned for the show choir group, and I got the scholarship and did that. But my second year, I just felt disconnected from it. It was no longer what I wanted to do. But one of the issues was I realized I was at a place of shifting into another dimension of myself, growing into another thing, and I had never asked myself, what else am I good at? It was what was known and what everybody expected from me was music because that's all they knew, but that didn't mean that there was no more to me, and so I decided to drop out, and then I got into fashion, but that's a whole nother story how that happened. But I want to say to you that I had my own PR marketing firm for about 8 years. I mean, I had worked in the industry and producing shows for New York Fashion Week, all of that, and then I decided to go back to school in 2012 to get my degree. And I only decided to do it just for the sake of having a degree because I didn't have one. But when I was in school, it was really interesting because after you've done this so long professionally and then you have to go to school and like listen to these people who have never done what you've done, but teaching it from a book standpoint. It was really interesting, and a lot of my professors were even nervous to have me in their classes because they knew, well, he does this professionally. But one of the things that was very interesting to me, the roughest part of school, and the Art Institute is project-based, so even though you have exams and all that, every quarter you had a project that you had to do, and there was a critique, and critique was very, very intense. You were critiqued with the dean and all the professors, and you had to stand up and talk about the project that you did. And this was one of the most roughest times that I found for the students was critique week. One of the things that was interesting to me about it was the work would be phenomenal, especially, the work was, talented people, but they were literally afraid of standing up there and talking about what they did. And you know why? Because of the fear of being judged. And the thing that I learned about critique and what made critique beautiful to me was that critique wasn't about it being right or wrong or your work being right or wrong. It was about you being able to defend your work and explain your creative process. And what I found was most people just don't like explaining or talking about the process in which they created and what the inspiration is behind their work and why they did it this way. And because they're so used to being told, well, oh, it shouldn't be like this, or, you know, again, that systemizing thing that we do. And so they get up and they're afraid. And it always, and I would talk to students and find, oh, well, you know, honestly, I have this problem because, oh, when I was 12, you know, I did something like this. And I mean, it was so interesting where all of these people were pulling from these places of pain or hurt or disappointment or tragedy to build things that were so beautiful. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. But in that creative process, you actually are healing yourself because you're now able to give yourself a different narrative about the experience you had because of what you created. And there's a part in all of our brains called the amygdala. Anybody know about it? The amygdala, yeah, what do you do? How do you know about that?
I just be reading.
Oh, okay. I'm like, that's really interesting. So the amygdala is a part of your brain, and it sits back, yeah, one of these sides, but it's back here, and it acts as a record player. And I was taught this from the life coach who licensed me, and she was a former client of mine. But the amygdala, so it records feelings. And so when things have happened to you, you know, and they don't have to be big traumatic moments, but let's just say, you know, the first time, you know, on your job, the first time that you were offended by your boss, or the first time you felt like you disappointed your supervisor, or whatever, like, and you from that point, every time you have to do something to get their approval, or they have to approve of something of yours, that nervous feeling that comes up, the reason why that's there is because the amygdala remembers how you felt the first time. So you all know that quote by Maya Angelou that says, people will forget what you said and they'll forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. That's the amygdala. And that's how it works. So even in coaching, so what we do is help people visit those places and then learn how to change the narrative, because that's all it is. It's telling you a narrative. And so no matter what time you're in that place where it seems familiar, the amygdala responds and says, this is that thing. So they would get, even though that was years later, they're now at critique at the Art Institute, and they're, you know, 19, 20, 21 and up, but they still feel like that 12-year-old that was told no, or that 13-year-old that was told this isn't good. And they've created from that space. But I was helping them to understand that, but embrace what you've done in your creativity to help you change the narrative. And that will speak to so many other people, because that's a story in itself. Because most people feel like, well, I don't have a story that's valuable. I don't have a story that's meaningful. Nothing about my story is going to change anybody's life. But if you're creative, it absolutely will. Yeah.
Okay. I want to just stop and say this. Every time that Elliot and I have a conversation, this is the level of intent that we go into it with, and just talking with each other. And I think it feels so good to have this on a more open forum level, because these type of conversations, like, they just make you feel good. I mean, how many people feeling good right now? Like, yeah, we feeling good? Okay, I'm feeling real good. And so, you know, I think that what we talked about in the conversation was something is we wanted to do something a little bit more physical. So we have like a small little exercise that we're gonna do while everybody is present. And this is kind of like the thesis of the masterclass, right? It's coloring outside the lines. And so I'm gonna have Elliot explain to you what this is, and then if you have any volunteers, then we'll work with them. So what we got here for tools, we got a little clipboard with some white paper on it, okay? And then I got my good markers too. You know, the double-sided tips from Blick. So what we gonna do? Yeah, you already know them ones. They expensive. You get 4 for like $10. All right, I got a couple colors. Invest in yourself, people, because nobody else is gonna invest in you like you will invest in yourself. All right. And so I want to give time for Elliot to kind of explain this color outside the lines exercise. And so what we'll do is we'll have one person come up and they'll perform the exercise, and then they'll be able to present what they do with the rest.
And this is the one you shared before?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Actually, Eric came up with this, but what we're going to do is if we have a volunteer who wants to come up, and we're gonna have you draw a picture, but you have to draw it with your eyes closed, and you have to do it. You have to just do it based on whatever you feel, whatever you sense in this moment, however you're feeling, and want you to put that into a picture. Who wants to do it? Oh, you want? Oh, very good.
Come on, Chad.
Always a brave soldier in the house.
Okay. So I'm
And
gonna
then
have
when
you
you
stay
finish,
here,
we'll tell you
so you
why.
ain't gotta
So you-
stand and
Yeah.
do it. So you
Oh,
can
you
sit
can
there.
sit here,
Mhm.
and I'm gonna say something while he's doing
And then
that.
you pick
so
your
it's not,
color?
so we're not sitting here looking at. Okay. So we're not sitting here looking at him. But I share this, and I feel the need to share. I share this all the time in every talk that I do. But if I was to give all of you in here an apple seed, and if you've heard me ask this, don't you answer. It has to be somebody new. If I was to give everyone in here an apple seed today, and I told you to go outside and plant it, and you did, and then you were to come back up here, and I asked you, what did you plant? What would you tell me you planted? Oh my goodness. Who said it? I heard you say it. Who else said answer? He said an apple tree. Does anybody know why you planted an apple tree? Because inherent in the seed of the tree is the tree itself. And you all are just like that apple seed. Everything that you need in order to be what it is that you desire to become, it's already inside of you. We're just going through the process of unbecoming that we might become. That's all it is. That's the process of life. Where you are now, the reason why you are drawn to be here today, because everything in your life prepared you for the moment of now. Everything in your life. You'll be ready to face work tomorrow or wherever you have to go. The reason why you can do it, if you have a presentation, if you have a class to teach or whatever you have to do, you'll be able to do it, and you're prepared for it because everything in your life from birth to this moment prepared you to sit here, prepared you to engage in this conversation. And you really have to understand that, and that's the tool of living a life, that your life was trajectified before you ever got here. And so we're just going through the process of connecting the dots so that we can see what it is that we truly are building. And that's the beauty of your destiny. And one of the things that's very powerful in that is having a circle of influence, because I can sit here and do all this talking, but I'll tell you all what is valuable for me, because I do get energized in conversations. That's the interesting thing. For me to sit with myself in my thoughts is very unhealthy for me. I have to get things out of my head. I have to express. I vent a lot. I express a lot, but I don't keep things in. And sometimes, but that's I'm an extrovert, so it's easy for me to do that. I know for introverted people, it's a little bit different, but I do practice that kind of engagement and surrounding myself with people who I can talk to and people who can talk to me, because I do believe that as a voice and as a speaker, you have to listen twice as much as you speak. And so I have voices like Michael and Channing and Hannah, and I mean, we be up till 2 and 3 in the morning. Like I will call you at any given hour. I do not care, because all you can do is not answer. I mean, I'm just saying, like I call anybody, it'd be 2 o'clock in the morning, I'll be like, I got something to say. I was just thinking. And it'll be a full-on conversation, but that's really how I am. I used to feel very apologetic about that part of myself, because when I was in grade school, I got excessive talking on every report card. I'm just saying, like every report card. I mean, to this day, I'll go home and pull out my yearbook and pull out some of them old report cards where you got all A's and B's and your parents were proud of it. And I'm like, everyone, it says excessive talking. I mean, really, like, who had a problem with me talking that much? And I don't remember me having to talk that much, because grade school is very busy. You had a lot to do. I don't know if people really realize school was busy at a young age. But I'm just so glad that I didn't allow that to change my narrative about myself, and that I was okay. And I thank God for my parents, because I really have parents who allowed me to be and required me to be okay with my voice. And the reason why I talk the way that I do and so much is because my parents also made me talk. And I'm really glad about that, because if not, I wouldn't be in a position to do what it is that I do today. I wouldn't be able to travel and stand on stages and empower people or write my book or none of that because if I had listened to that, I would have grown up with an issue with my own voice. And I will be honest with you and say that there are sometimes it's a little bit of a struggle even for me now, some days, not all the time, and just with some people, because in my life, and I posted this on Instagram and Facebook for those of you who follow me and wonder why I was asking this question, I even text a lot of people in the middle of the night a random question. I said, have you ever felt invisible? because I realized, and I'm telling you, 99.9% of the people that responded to me all expressed that they had felt invisible, and most of them said that they feel invisible more than they ever would like to admit. And I posted, and one person, I got my post wrong because Marcy actually was the only person who asked me, well, have you ever felt invisible wherever she is? I know she's here somewhere, wherever she went. But I actually had to acknowledge, well, I actually never have felt invisible. Actually, I feel like I stick out so much that most times I'm trying to shrink in the background so I'm not so seen. However, I do know what it is to feel unheard. I do know what it is to feel unheard. And I guess for me, the truth in that, and this just came to me sitting here, is I've never cared to be seen. Because I think all my life I've just known that I will be. And so I've just never cared to be seen. But I have cared because I'm a voice. What has mattered to me is that people hear me. And I have felt many types of ways when I felt ignored or shut out, or that, you know, my voice wasn't enough, and so I wrote my book for people who have lived their life feeling like they were too much or not enough. Because that is the way that I felt growing up. And I was a very popular boy. I was voted most popular, best dressed, most friendliest, and most talkative. Every year in school, from elementary school to high school, I had those accolades every year. But I still felt like, as popular as I am, and as much as people love being around me, and as loving as I am, and as much of a people person as I am, I always felt like I was too much or not enough for people. And that was because when I ran into experiences, I felt like people couldn't hear me, or they misinterpreted what I was saying, or something that I said offended or hurt someone and caused them to walk the other way or not deal with me. That is one of the greatest offenses and pains that I deal with, that my voice causes the issue, because my voice is intended to empower, to uplift, to build, and to inspire. Yeah.